Hello, hello. Good evening and welcome to Stories from Experience, brought to you by the Schreiber Institute for Women's Leadership, along with our collaborative partner tonight, LiveX Inc. My name is Polly Moore, and I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Director for the Schreiber Institute for Women's Leadership. We are on a mission to advance women's leadership both personally and professionally at all stages of their career and life. Tonight, we are kicking off our 2025 Stories from Experience series in person at the LiveX studio and also virtually. Thank you for joining in and following us tonight. When I think about leadership, I think about women who not only pave the way, but also influence positive impact and change. We are super excited to be able to hear the leadership journey of Rachel McCutchen, who is the VP of Administration for LiveX Inc., a live streaming and production company that is headquartered in New York with a remote location in Green Bay, which opened in 2020. Moderating tonight's session is Addie Teeter, Vice President of Marketing and Communication for Special Olympics of Wisconsin and a current advisory board member. Please help me welcome both Addie and Rachel.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening. And obviously we heard just a real quick intro, Rachel, on your title and LiveX, which we're going to get completely into here. But tell us about your personal journey. Who did Rachel want to be when she grew up, and what got you here?
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Super excited to see all of these amazing women in one space. So that's a tough question to answer as far as who did Rachel want to be when she was a younger person, younger kid, younger woman, because I don't know. I don't know that I have an answer to that. I never was specifically goal-oriented in my trajectory. I never was like, I want to be a lawyer and then shoot for that, right? So I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska. I ended up staying home for college, so I went to the University of Nebraska, Omaha. I lived in my parents' basement. I'm the oldest of four, and my college career got me into the theater because I didn't have a lot of direction as far as what I thought I wanted to do. At that age, I think a lot of people don't. Some people do, some people don't. For me, I didn't. So I found myself, I had done some theater and art in high school. So I found myself in the theater department and just kind of blossomed from there. Worked on all of the productions that we did at UNO with a very, very small class. My graduating class in the dramatic arts at UNO was 3. I was one of the 3. And so, however, what that did do for me is the university also partnered with a Shakespeare festival locally called the Nebraska Shakespeare Festival, where I got firsthand experience working with professional actors, designers, things like that. And someone, a good friend of mine, Paul Pape, said to me once, you should look into stage management. You're very organized. This seems like something that would be good for you. So I kind of took that advice to heart and I went with it. I'm also a yes person. So if people say, you should try this, usually, especially at that age, my answer was yes. And so fast forward, I graduated. I worked regionally in the theater in Colorado, North Carolina, and back in Nebraska. And I was working professionally, actually, at the Shakespeare Festival, and I met a boy. And he was,
Preach, sister.
I met a boy, and he was one of the actors who came in from New York City. And we kind of started hanging out, started dating, and he convinced me to give New York a try. It was never on my radar to go to New York. It's a big, scary city. I thought I was just going to stay regional, work in, kind of more local Chicago area, stay close to home, family, whatever. But I did it because I'm a yes girl. So I packed up my apartment into a Ryder truck and I drove from Omaha to New York and I moved in with a girlfriend and was very, very fortunate that I just hit the ground running. I got a job almost right away. I did move to New York at kind of later time, so I had professional experience under my belt, so I was able to get work in that way. And within a year and a half, I had worked my way up to my first Broadway show, where I was a production assistant. And then fast forward, just worked on Broadway, kept working climbing my way up the stage management ladder, if you will. And then Corey, my partner, decided that he'd like to start a streaming company and call it LiveX, and would I, be interested in supporting that? And I was like, absolutely. So Corey started LiveX. I stayed working in the theater, and then about a handful of years later, I was well established on the Book of Mormon that I was on for 7 years, and an opportunity came up to join Corey at LiveX, so I took it, retired from the theater, and kind of the rest is history. And here we are. We opened a location here in Green Bay in 2020, like Polly said, and that's kind of the long-ish version of my road.
And this journey to Green Bay, because Green Bay is so not Manhattan, so I can only imagine the culture shock and the journey and some of your first experiences coming to Green Bay. Tell us about really opening the second location. What was even the journey with that?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing, a little backstory to Green Bay in general, is that Corey is from here originally. And so before we moved here full time, before we even thought about opening LiveX here, we bought a house here in 2016. And we would come back for Packer games and family events and things like that. So we were kind of the reverse commuters. I'm not sure what you call that, but we would come from New York to Green Bay for game weekends and things like that. So I was very familiar with Green Bay at that point, and Corey's extended family is here, and so the pandemic was the driving force to opening the location here. Things in New York were scary, things everywhere were scary, but things in New York were particularly scary. And then all of a sudden we got a contract with the Democrats to do that year's Democratic National Convention. And all of a sudden we were gangbusters. We went from we might have to close like every other small business to everybody's live streaming, and we got this big contract. So that happened, and then Corey said, I think I want to open a location in Green Bay. We'd always talked about other locations. Do we want to open a second location in LA? Do we want to open a second location in Omaha, where I'm from? And Green Bay kind of was where we landed. And it's almost like coming home. I grew up in Omaha from the Midwest, so being here was very easy, and I love it here, but it is very different than New York.
And talk about your career transition. So, the theater is obviously, there's fast-paced elements, there's a lot of diversity, there's a lot of personalities. How does one take that experience and then apply it to this world of LiveX? And maybe in your answer, if you could expand a little bit for the audience and for our live stream audience, what does LiveX do?
Okay, so I think my skill set was perfect for moving into the position that I moved into at LiveX, because when I first started at LiveX, I actually ran a company called Broadcast USA. It was a distribution arm of LiveX, so we sold equipment, we sold cameras and streaming equipment. And so I basically ran that company. So that was, when I retired from the theater, that was the kind of window of opportunity for me to join LiveX. There wasn't really a seat for me in LiveX proper at that point, but Corey and another partner of his started this company, and he said, hey, do you want to come in and run it? So that happened, and my skill set, I was actually talking to Kasha about this yesterday. My skill set isn't honed for what I do now. My education is in theater, my experience is in theater. However, the skills are transferable. And this is what I say to all young women that I meet, no matter what you are doing, generally speaking, skills are transferable from any kind of whatever entity that you're in. And so coming to LiveX for me was really challenging, because I didn't know, I still don't understand parts of how streaming works. Not gonna lie. I run the admin department here. I do HR and hiring and paperwork and books and things like that. So I don't understand all of the nuts and bolts of it. However, what I did have was the leadership skills to take a team and say, okay, this is the end goal. I can help you reach that end goal, right? This is where we wanna be. My team, generally speaking, we support the rest of the company. So our production staff go out on their jobs. My team support them. Do they need travel? Do they need hotels? Are they bringing gear? Do things need to be shipped? That's a lot of what we do. And so my skills were already ready for that. And so what does LiveX do? So we stream any live event. This one is a good example. This is a good example of a small one. And then we also do live streaming for larger clients, like the Democrats. Or we do the ball drop in Times Square for New Year's Eve every year. We just did, I think it was our 17th year? 17? Anyway, we've been doing that for years, and the coolest thing about that job, which is my actual favorite job here at LiveX, is it's the entire company, both New York and Green Bay, working together. We have a truck in Times Square for that job, a TV truck that we have our team in, then we have a team in the New York office in Brooklyn, and then we have a team here, and they're all doing the same job, and it's my favorite job of the year that we all do together. And so basically any event that you have, small, large, whatever, we can help live stream it. And that can be from just one person operating a camera to a whole big production. And also, we don't even need to be the people running the camera. We can take feeds from anywhere. We can work with local crews, which we do a lot. We do work a lot with freelancers as well. So.
And this is, right now we are in the brick and mortar of your Green Bay office. And when I came here for the first time, I was absolutely amazed with the investment you and your partner Corey have made in this community itself and in this building. Can you talk about the process of just moving in here and making this your own?
Yeah, it was a lot. So when we first moved here, so during the pandemic, Corey moved here in August of 2020. I stayed in New York. He and a small employee base that we hired here, 2 people, I think it was, were on the 2nd floor, actually, in the same building. And we were in what is technically an office space. It was, kind of a open area and then 2 little offices. And we made those 2 small offices into small remote master control rooms. And the idea was to see if it worked, right? Can this be done here in Green Bay? And we found out it could. So we started looking for spaces to create LiveX Green Bay in, because that little office was not going to cut it for us for very long. And so we looked around. We looked at a lot of different places, but ultimately it was in the building that we were already in where we landed. And so this floor we completely gutted. It was multiple offices. It was all broken up. And we worked with some amazing architects and Kaylor Slater out of Milwaukee, and they helped us in a lot of ways. But Corey, I'm not going to take any credit. Corey is the driving force for a lot of the local things you'll find in this space.
And for our live stream folks, we're in a very historic part of Green Bay, Wisconsin right now. So we're in the Broadway district, and really a huge area of revitalization that's been happening here. So yeah, just the fact that you were able to pull in all of just these little niche artifacts and really nods to the area.
Yeah, and we really wanted this space also to reflect New York, right? Our New York office, not New York City, LiveX New York. And so we did take a lot of elements that we have in that office space there and put them here, so that if you were in one office, you would still feel like, if you visited here from New York, you would still feel like you were in LiveX, right? Kind of like Starbucks, they all look the same. But we did do a lot of things here that we couldn't do there just because of the limitations of space, obviously. Our New York office probably would fit in this studio, like where the bullpen was, where our staff worked, in our Manhattan office. But all of the Cream City brick that you see in this space was brought in and put into this building to make it, feel more authentic. For those of you who have been here, and for those of you who maybe want to come back and do a tour or stay a little bit and wander around after this, we have a whole lot of Cream City brick throughout the facility. And then we brought in wood elements. We hired local designers and artists so that this would really feel like Green Bay, even though we wanted it to be LiveX.
And we are obviously here tonight. We're gathered because this is a program that the Schreiber Institute for Women's Leadership puts on, and it's an organization I'm super passionate about. I know you are as well. So as you think about women's leadership and just with the diversity and exposure that you've had in your career, what are you passionate about when it comes to amplifying women and their voices and their journeys?
Yeah, I was talking with my mom about this event earlier this week, and she said one of the things that you should share with the audience is that your path is a little unusual for a woman, especially of my age and older. So I am a 49-year-old woman who is not married. I have no kids. and I'm hugely successful. So you don't, and you can, of course, have all of those things, and people should. It wasn't my path. And so I think that just about me as an individual, and I also had no fear of leaving home, where I think a lot of Midwest men and women have a little fear of leaving home or being too far from home, or they give it a shot and they come back, right? Which is okay too, that's great. Nothing against that. And so I think setting an example for younger women to say, if your path is marriage, children, career, that's great. It doesn't have to be, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to have the husband and the 2 kids and the dog and the career. You can have just the husband, the kids, and the dog. And that's it. And that's great, because you know what? Being a mom and a wife is also a career in a lot of ways. And a lot of women think that that's amazing, and I think that that's amazing. It's just not my path. And so that was one thing that my mom was like, I think that you should maybe point that out.
We can support each other by doing things out of order.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
That's one of the most important things we can do for each other.
Yeah, and I think, for me, the one thing that I've definitely discovered here, and I'm very fortunate to have discovered it, and I can't look up right now, is a supportive group of women.
Yeah. You have this little sisterhood that just came to rally for you tonight, which they're the noisy ones on this first part of the room. But no, the fact, and we were talking about this before, because I said when you're coming into a Midwestern environment, a very established community, and I just flat out asked you, how did you make friends? You just do, but you did.
Yeah.
And I think you do find in this area, in this community in particular, that now that fierce loyalty is going to follow you, right?
Huge. And like I shared with you, when we first got here, I had a lot of difficulty infiltrating circles, right? So social circles, women. Where do you meet women of the age of 40s? You certainly don't meet them at a bar, right? Generally speaking, you might get lucky. In the meeting a woman way, not meeting.
You're totally from the Midwest. She's definitely from the Midwest now. Yep.
But I am so fortunate to have met the women that I did. So many of them are in this room. And one of my circles of friends, I shared with you earlier, I went to a wine tasting by myself because my partner's not really into that. And I sat at a table, and I just was lucky enough to be sitting at a table with these 3 women who immediately adopted me. I was like, you're our new friend. You're coming with us. And I see them regularly, and 2 of them are here. And then I have other groups of friends that I have one friend in particular who is so good at bringing friends together. Mm-hmm. And she knows who she is. But she's so good at bringing people together. And then I have a group that we meet for brunch often. And what I love about that group is when we get together, we have fun, we laugh, whatever, we drink. It's brunch. But we support each other. What we do is we do check-ins. Where are you? Who's got something going on this time? What are your failures? How can we help you? What can we do to celebrate your successes? And that's so important for women of any age. And I'm very lucky to have found it.
This is not an environment where we can take the risk of being competitive with each other anymore, is it? We really truly do have to support each other, and even if it's a brand new, let's be friends. Right now, I don't know you, let's be friends and let's start supporting each other. Yeah. There's a lot of strength in that.
Well, and we talked about that earlier too. It's like I think you're right in what you said, in that I think women need to just take the reins and say, you look cool. You know, maybe we have something in common. Right. Maybe we don't. Maybe we can learn something from each other. And I think here at LiveX especially, I get the most joy out of seeing our team succeed. I love seeing emails from clients after a show to say, your team was awesome. And then I love seeing my little team succeed, because my little team is women. I run the admin department, one report here in Green Bay and one in New York. And then our show today is being produced by Nicole, who's one of our up-and-comers. She is a woman leader in the making. She's a badass, she's amazing. I've watched her do some incredible things. And so I like just being able to support that is incredible.
One last question for you before we turn it over to the audience.
Yeah.
And I should mention our live stream folks, we would love to take questions from you, but unfortunately we don't have time today. So we are going to be, I know we've got a lot of questions right here in our live audience. So what are you losing sleep about at night? What makes you nervous? I mean, is there anything that maybe you put your head on the pillow and you're like, oh man, my mind's a reeling?
You're going to hate me. I don't lose sleep at night. I do not. I think that my background in the theater really helps me in that when I was in the theater, when you left the theater, you were done. There was no more work to do until you went back to the theater the next day. And that's the mentality that I try to adopt here. I've been at LiveX for 7 years. Much, much, much easier said than done. But I think it's important to realize when to turn it off. And I think, especially, I live and work with my partner. And for us, it has been challenging over the 7 years that I've been with the company to turn it off and to not talk about work. And it happens, of course it happens. So I think I'm really good at kind of separating work and my life. And I'm not big into social media. So I don't doom scroll. I don't go to bed and pick up my phone and look at all of the social media apps. I'm on Instagram and I'm on LinkedIn. That's it. And I'm rarely on either of those. Do I have nights where maybe I do flick through? Yes, absolutely. But I try not to, and I especially don't. I try not to in bed when I go to bed. What I do is I read. So for me, it's pick up your book, escape to whatever that world is for a couple of chapters, and then your mind it can just either be in that land or it can just go, and I have no problem sleeping.
I'm a little jealous.
Do I wake up to stress? Sometimes, yes, but yeah, no trouble sleeping.
We would love to turn it over to all of you for a couple of questions. So where do I have my first question? All right, we're gonna get the mic on you.
Well, my first question wants to be, where did you get those shoes? But they're amazing. But a serious question, kind of referring to you and your partner, Corey, and just that boundary that you guys set in working together and living together. What are some tactics, what are some things that you guys do to be able, like, are they set of like, okay, only these hours, okay, only on this day, whatever it might be. What are some of those things that you guys have established to set that boundary?
It's a great question because we've tried multiple things, to be honest, and not all of them work. And sometimes someone will, forget or whatever. And so sometimes it was just when we get home, let's not talk about it, but that's not realistic. Most of the time now it is, I don't want to, just whomever is listening to say, I'm not ready to talk about work. Like, let's not talk about work. And of course that slips up too, right? I think the main thing that we both try to remember is to actively say, if we're in that space, to acknowledge that, right? If you're not in a space to talk about work, someone has to say, I'm not in a space to talk about work. Otherwise, that's when the tension starts. So for us, I think it's just awareness more than kind of a set rule necessarily. And the shoes are sneaks. I should be a spokesperson for sneaks. I really should.
Oh, we got a question right behind.
First of all, I want to thank you for normalizing not having to be married and not having children. I fully appreciate and back you on that one. But I also want to know what book you're reading.
I just started The 7 Husbands of, thank you, Evelyn Hugo.
We got book club over here too.
Yeah. Usually I go more towards thrillers, mysteries, which I know I'm an oddball to read those kind of things before I go to bed, but I am also, I enjoy watching Dateline and slasher movies, so that's just me. But yeah, so that's what I just started, like literally just started, and I'm excited about it.
Another question for Rachel.
Rachel, can you talk a little bit about Cheesehead TV and your involvement with Corey in that particular production?
Yeah. So Cheesehead TV started as a podcast before podcasting was podcasting. It was just spoken, right? No video, no nothing. And it started, Corey, my partner, and his partner in Cheesehead TV named Aaron Nagler, both former actors, and started this podcast, being both from the Green Bay and Appleton area. Cheesehead TV, and they used to podcast out of our spare bedroom in New York City. And I was the set designer, basically. So at first it was just their voices, obviously, because there wasn't video podcasting or whatever you call that at the time. And so when they got into, we're going to be, on camera, Corey and I painted a wall in our New York apartment green, and I did all the set dressing. And so that's been a really fun enterprise because my role really with Cheesehead TV is simply support. I don't engage in their shows. I don't engage in their day-to-day. But the other thing that we do, Corey and I, we live across the street from Lambeau Field, and we host a lot of tailgates at our house for game day. And Corey does a live watch party from our house for every game as well. And so that's where my role really for Cheesehead TV comes in that we've built a lot of social connections through Cheesehead TV, a lot of friend connections through Cheesehead TV, and so it's really just a support role from my perspective for the guys. But if you don't know about Cheesehead TV, check them out. They're amazing. All things Packer all the time, and they're going to be Aaron's going to be at the Super Bowl doing on Media Row, so that's pretty cool, doing a show from there.
And are you a Packer fan now? I mean, have we done this to you enough?
This is a great question. So growing up in Omaha, Nebraska, football was never, a dirty word in our house. It was, you didn't get married on Husker football day. You didn't have birthday parties on Husker football day. So football culture is something I'm extremely familiar with. When I met Corey, I was not a Packer fan. I wasn't really an NFL follower. So it was very easy. He's so passionate about it. It was very easy to jump on the bandwagon. And I live in a Packer Gold house, so can't get more fan than that, I don't think.
Tell our friends about this, because I mean, it's not just like exterior that we're talking, right?
Yeah. The house is. We never planned. I don't want to speak for Corey. I never thought we would be living here full time this soon. So we bought the house in 2016, and it was built to be a party house. It's got a bar. It has huge windows that face the stadium. It's not a house that I think people look at and say, yeah, I want to live in that, because it is literally a party house, and it's Packer top to bottom. But when we moved in permanently, full time, I said, I think we need to paint the bedroom and maybe change the sheets. I don't need to sleep on Packer logo sheets every night of my life. And so we've been slowly kind of making it our own, but there's still a lot of Packer in the house. And you know what? It's great.
That's commitment.
It's awesome. For me, football's more about the social aspect than the game. A lot of people that are here come to our house for tailgating, and it's really much more. I don't even know half the players anymore, because
Now you're going to start getting tips. I get where
I know. I love the Packers.
Next question for Rachel. We got time for one or two more.
Okay, thank you. Also, no children over the age of
Loving
50,
this. Okay.
and only married about a year and a couple months. So
Okay.
yeah,
Love it.
different lifestyle.
Yeah.
What do you miss about New York? Other than the brick and the decor, what have you brought from New York here? And when you went to New York, what did you take from here, or Omaha, I guess, the Midwest, with you to New York?
Interesting. Wow, I'm gonna think on those two-parters. There are a lot of things that I miss about New York. Everybody that knows me knows this answer. I don't like owning a car. I find it burdensome, and I find it just an annoying thing that you have to have a car. Because in New York you walked, or you took the subway, or you never had to worry about how you're going to get home from the bar if you had one too many, right? So that's one thing that I miss. But really the big things that I do miss is I do miss the theater. I miss working in the theater quite a bit, actually. That was a social outlet for me, in addition to work that I loved and enjoyed. But I miss the hustle and bustle of the city. I miss the pace of the city. And I do enjoy when I go back there, but to be honest, I almost enjoy more coming back here after, because it's just the relax factor. It's the, kind of let it go and everything is just more chill. But yes, and the nightlife. Bars open, if you want to go for a drink at 10:30 at night, there's a lot of options in New York. Here, not so many. And the restaurants. But I will say, growing up in the Midwest and coming back here was very much like coming home. I love Green Bay. I love it here. I love the community. And I can't wait, because Green Bay summers are the best season anywhere, ever. What did we bring here from New York? I don't know. I don't know that I have a specific, other than, stuff. I don't know that I have a specific answer to that. Our cat, I suppose. We kept an apartment in New York for a while after we moved here full time. And I was actually just joking at a dinner last night with someone that it was nice because we didn't have to have luggage when we would travel. I would go to Green Bay Airport with literally my purse, and I would have an apartment there full of all of my things, and so that was cool. What did I bring from Omaha here? I don't know. I'm not a big material girl person. That's another thing that I think a lot of my close friends know about me. I'm more moments in time and photographs. And I've digitized all of my family photos. I'm big into that. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. I mean, I know not in full, but yeah.
One more question.
So can you hear me? Yep. Okay. Oh my gosh, okay. You know that I am a huge musical nerd, so this is a very selfish question, but I just have to know what your absolute favorite moment or moments were on the Book of Mormon.
Oh my gosh,
we were just commiserating about Josh Gad before, and yeah.
There are so many. There's a lyric in that show that says this book will change your life, and we would say that to each other over the years that I was there constantly, because it did. It changed my life. It changed my life. It changed my life socially. It changed my life financially. It was a solid job, which in theater you don't get very often. But there's over the 7+ years I worked on that show, there are so many moments that I loved about that show, and the people that I worked with on that show. I will say, I was so, not to get too in the weeds, but stage management teams on musicals are generally minimum 3 people, and depending on how big the show is, up to 5, 6, 7 people. Book of Mormon was 3 people. Actually, by Broadway standards, it's a pretty small show. Technically speaking, it's pretty simple. And my boss, so she was the production stage manager, her name's Karen Moore. She's the one who brought me up through the ranks. She gave me one of my first jobs in New York. She gave me my first Broadway shot. She gave me my first job as an assistant stage manager, which is the bottom rung of the totem pole. And so I was stage manager on Book of Mormon, and she's just an incredible mentor, an incredible leader, an incredible woman. And there are just so many moments. But she and Mike, we were a team of 3, and they are still my comrades to this day, right? I reach out to them quite a bit. Yeah, and it's just there's just no way to encapsulate the ridiculousness that ensues backstage, on stage, because once you're running a show for that long, it becomes like riding a bike. And as long as nothing catastrophic happens, you're doing the same thing pretty much every show. And you interact with the same people backstage. So you'd have moments, where you have an interaction and whatever. And yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how to specify one moment, because how do you encapsulate 7 years of activity? But those people and that director, Casey Nicola, were incredible people to work with, incredible people to have in my life. A lot of them are still in my life. Yeah, Yeah, it was an amazing, amazing experience. They were my family. Mike and I used to sit next to each other in the office, and I spent more time with him than I did with Corey. He was my show husband, right? And so it was a really amazing time. It was a really amazing time to look back on now. But a lot of ridiculous things happened. Yeah. Well, at brunch we'll talk about it.
So, and besides Book of Mormon, then what are your other top 2 favorite shows out there?
Well, I always lean towards the one I worked on because I think you just kind of get this, love for it in a different way than if you're just listening to a soundtrack or watching a show. So my very first Broadway show was called Taboo. It was a Rosie O'Donnell produced show. It originated in London on the West End, and she brought it to the United States, and the music is written by Boy George. And if you aren't familiar with it, get the soundtrack, go listen to it. It's kind of amazing. But that was my first Broadway show, and it's one of my loves. And then another one of my loves is one called The Drowsy Chaperone that I worked on. If you're not familiar with that one, it is just a love letter to musicals. Melinda, if you don't know that one, you need to listen to it. It's about a man who lives in a small apartment in New York, and he escapes by listening to his records. And he puts a record on called The Drowsy Chaperone, and it comes to life in his apartment, and it's just mayhem ensues. But it's just the way that he talks about it and the way that he just lives it, and it's an amazing show. So those are my besides Book of Mormon, those are my other 2 personal favorites.
Well, on behalf of everyone here, on behalf of everyone joining us on the live stream, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for just sharing your journey with us. And like we said, we have to support each other and not always following the same linear path.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's probably one of my biggest takeaways today. So before we wrap up, though, I'm going to toss it back to the Executive Director of the Schreiber Institute for Women's Leadership, Polly.
All right. Is this on? Am I on? Yes? Okay. Newbie here. So again, Rachel, just thank you. I don't know about all of you, but I think hearing her story is just really powerful. I think you get to know someone's credential, right? And you're just in awe and admiration. But I think when you hear the story behind their lived experience, you have just that much more mad respect for that individual and the trials and tribulations, the successes, the relocation, the different opportunities that have come her way. So we really appreciate you coming alongside us and letting us hear your story. We got a small snapshot of it, but again, I think it's really critical. And if I could kind of piggyback off 2 key takeaways that I heard from you tonight is community is really important. And so I know you talked a lot about a community of women, different community of women. Some people you brunch with, other people you entertain with, other people you read book clubs with. But I encourage all of you to join the IWL community. We would love to hear from you, and we would love to support you as well. And then the other aspect is sharing your story. I don't know about you, but I'm just inspired. Stories are really, really powerful. You kind of see a little aspect of who Rachel is, and you kind of get to know her on a deeper level. So if you are able to share your story, I encourage you to do so. You never know who's watching, you never know who's listening, and you never know how powerful your words can mean to someone else. And Addie, phenomenal job. Thank you again for stepping up. But I really do want to give a shout out to the live studio team. Thank you, thank you. Can we give a round of applause for them as well? It's kind of funny when this opportunity came about, we just toured the space here and we're like, this would be amazing if we could actually kick off 2025 Stories from Experience on a larger platform to be able to reach more women and share the stories of our 7 speakers for 2025. So I just really want to thank Corey and Rachel and the entire live team for coming alongside us, for really making this easy for us to be able to make this work. And again, really, really appreciate all of you that came in the studio to be able to join us at LiveX, and also for everyone watching, all of our live viewers. Thank you again for joining us and tuning in. Quick shout out, our next Stories from Experience is actually happening in Appleton on February 20th, and we're going to be hearing from Kristen Aberay, who is the Vice President of Enrollment and Chief of Staff for Lawrence University. So we are going to pivot our next Stories from Experience in Appleton at the downtown Fox Commons and working alongside our partners at Lawrence University. So with that, thank you, and good night.
Thank you.